You're listening to a lifestyle podcast with Lovoni and Sarah. Our goals: to inspire good health and well-being, empowerment, beauty and joy, offering support and friendship as we share our journeys in the hopes it helps you. Hello my friends, and thanks for tuning in to what was once the Waiting Room podcast. I'm Lovoni, and together with my co-host Sarah, we want to let you know our podcast has changed its name from the Waiting Room podcast to simply Lovoni and Sarah. Now, along with the name change, we're doing some rebranding and developing a website, all very exciting, and we'd love you to come along on this adventure with us. So often you hear people talk of bad food and good food. When we eat the foods perceived as bad, especially when trying to lose weight and be healthier, we feel guilty. In today's episode, Sarah and I are talking about guilt. Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 10 of the Waiting Room podcast, Guilt Trip. When it comes to food, this guilt can perpetuate itself, often leading to a binge. But guilt shows itself in many areas of our life, warranted or not. But before we dive into this episode, let's chat about what our last goals were and how we did. Sarah, remind me of your last goal and how did you do with it?
My last goal came off the back of having not a very positive week when we were last speaking, and the goal was to reset, refocus and sort of retune back into my routine and my habits. I haven't done very well at all. I feel like I need to be really honest. I'm really struggling at the moment, but I have spent a little bit of time trying to sort of focus in about my week and think about it a bit more. I've got some positives and some less positives, but positive one thing is I've joined my local gym, which has been really great. I've really enjoyed going to somewhere else other than home to go and do the exercise and feel really good when I come out. So that's a real positive. I've also been continuing doing some decluttering, not to the extent that you have, but sort of getting rid of some things, and that's been feeling really, really good. So I have had some positive things. The less positive is I haven't really been doing planning and a routine. I've just let my busyness take me over, and the result of that is I've been eating really sugary foods. I've not been drinking enough water, and I felt pretty rough really because of it. Last night I worked really, really late and felt really quite unwell, so I had a good sort of chat with myself and just sort of said, I'm going to have to draw a line in the sand. You feel like this because of what you're eating and what you're doing or not doing, so I'm the only one responsible. So yeah, that's a summary, I think, of where I'm at. But
well, focus on the positives though. I mean, yeah, that's awesome. You joined the gym. That's so good. So, focus on that. And the fact that, you and I have spoke about this before, that that you can just turn it around within 24 hours.
Exactly.
Your body responds to it.
Exactly. It's not that's it. I've broken it now.
Right.
But it's just a case of, I found it really hard, really, really hard, and I've just not done it.
Right.
There's no other reason. Yes, I'm busy, but actually I could still have done it in that time, and I just haven't. So it's just become one of those snowball sort of situations. But
you're aware of it, and now you're just going to not wait. You're just going to do it from like right now. And
yeah, each of those decisions
things
has to be an instant decision, doesn't it, rather than a putting it off decision. Anyway, so that's where I'm at. I've been completely honest about that.
Right, good for you. Well, my goal was to continue with my purge, my February purge.
Yep.
And also to write a list of things that I have been carrying with me for 5 decades, really. To be honest, it was amazing, the shit that you just bottle up inside.
Yeah.
And so I sat and I wrote it all down. And then I didn't read back over it, and then I took it outside and I burnt it. And then I did a little video. Well, I thought I was doing a video of me lighting it and burning it, but I wasn't recording because I'm so crap at that. I think it's recording, it's not. But anyway, I recorded the tail end and I sent it to Sarah, and it had burnt down by that stage. But she texts me back and she's like, oh, geez, that was a lot, or something like that.
Like,
I said, well, it was 5 decades worth of stuff, right? But you know
we've shared that little video on our Instagram, so that was, it's on our Instagram stories.
But I just felt, and the sun was out. It was a bit later in the afternoon, so there was a chill in the air. But I felt lighter in doing it. It was so therapeutic, and that combined with my big purge that I did in February. For anybody that hasn't been following along, I've wrote all the numbers down from 1 to 28, put them in a jar, and each day I draw out a number, and that was how many things I had to purge. I don't know, for the first 2 weeks, I swear I just got all big numbers.
20s.
Yes. And then of course I was doing, a photo shoot, and that was hard because in doing it, what I would do is I'd go in and, clean cupboards out and things like that. And, you get part way through and you think, oh, well, okay, if I only had 20 things today, that's already 20 purged. But then you just keep going and cleaning out whatever it is that you're into. But when I was on the shoot, my days are very long and you're exhausted. I didn't have as much time. So you know what I did? Oh, they mounted up. So, there would be days where I was doing 57 things. Yeah. And my husband's like, well, just leave it. Don't worry about it. I'm like, no, I have to do it. And so I did it. I did it. And eventually, I think it winds up to about 400 things. And I'm sure in that I did get rid of more than that. Yeah. But, there was sometimes, like I said, if I was doing one thing, like going through my magazines or cookbooks or whatever, and I'd reached my day's number, I just kept going because I was already doing that. And I don't know, just that in itself too makes me feel lighter. And like you were saying, I've been going and opening cupboards or, drawers or whatever, and just looking inside, just thinking, oh, this looks so good. But in doing it, I feel like it just released me from so much stuff between that and the writing, things down. Because the reason why I did it was just to not write it down, but to write it down and move on from it.
Yeah, leave it behind.
Yes, and if I find my mind going back to it, then I'm just like, no. And you know what's interesting? Granted, it has only been a couple of days since I did that. That was the last thing in the month that I did. And that didn't count to my 400 things. But I haven't even thought about them. Isn't that weird?
No.
Yeah. But since we've started doing the podcast, I've lost 18 pounds. So
wow,
I can't see it on me, but
that's a massive difference.
But yeah, so I started, which I don't know how many kilos that is, about 9, 10, something like that. I don't know. Anyway, so I'm pretty happy with that. And that was, when I go to these shoots, it's about an hour away from my house, and I have to leave here anywhere between sort of 7:30 to 8 o'clock in the morning. Not that late, usually around 7:30 because I don't know about the traffic. And so I was just going and grabbing what I could, go on the bike, go on the treadmill. So it was basically my routine that I like to do pared down. Instead of doing 5 miles on the bike, I do like 3 or 2.5 or whatever. Instead of walking a mile, I do half a mile. So it was just that pared down. But at least I was still, I was doing it. Exactly. Yeah. And then the publishers where I was doing the food styling, they always buy us lunch. And then I was just trying to make good choices because you can have whatever you want. So I was just getting, salads and just fairly sort of wholesome type things.
Clean.
Yeah. And then I wasn't snacking because they buy snacks. There was some chocolates, and after I had lunch, if I felt like something sweet, I'd just have 1 or 2 little chocolates, and then, didn't feel bad about it. And so, so I'm
brilliant.
I haven't been perfect. There are changes that I would, like to make. But
that's the whole point. We don't have to be perfect. You've made progress.
Right. Yeah, however small. So, so today we're talking about guilt. And I know a lot of us carry around guilt. It's not good for your self-esteem. Relationships can lead to depression. I think it can have all sorts of fallout in your life. And I know there's a lot of guilt surrounding food because I don't know about you, but my mum used to say things like, if you clean your plate, then you can have, like a
Yeah, you can
dessert, or
finish
in
your
your
dinner
case,
before
pudding
having
or
it, yeah.
something like that, which for me wasn't anything huge because I was never allowed to, eat like crap food. But I know, and I'm not, shaming anyone or judging anyone, but, I know that there's people that say, well, if you're good, you can have an ice cream, or if you're good, you can have McDonald's, and there's a lot of that surrounding food, and the fact that you can't eat that, it's bad, or you should eat that, it's good, and so there's, that just creates guilt. If you have a piece of cake, you think that's bad.
Do you know, I looked up the definition of guilt.
Okay,
so we obviously all have our own understanding and our own feeling around the emotion of it, but so the definition of guilt was the fact of having committed a specific or implied offence or crime. That's really quite a strong statement when you're talking particularly around food. I mean, how can eating a certain type of food actually be a crime or an offence? I mean, it just can't be. Obviously, there's the implications of what you're going to be doing towards your health, or if you're trying to stick to a goal of losing weight, then the impact on that. But it's really odd how we've created this guilt around certain foods, which is such a strong word when you actually look at the intent of it.
Yes.
So I found that really interesting. But and I then, knowing we were going to be talking about this today, I put some thought into what I feel guilty about and how I then approach food. And it's a bit different for me because I don't know about you, but I don't have guilt around a certain food or type of food. But what I do have is the guilt when I don't stick to my plan, or if I binge eat, then that's when I start to feel guilty. And it's not because I've eaten ice cream or I've eaten chocolate. I don't have any guilt about those types of food, but it's because I've sort of let myself down. That's the guilt that I feel. So the fact that I feel like I'm hurting myself, or I'm not moving towards my goal or my intention, or just completely sort of broken what I wanted to do. So I feel disappointed, I feel ashamed, I feel guilty. So that's my guilt personally, rather than it being around eating a cookie or something. It's not the cookie that I feel. Do you know what I mean? I don't associate it with a type of food. I associate it with the way that I'm eating those foods.
Right. Like maybe binging or something like that.
Do you feel guilty about eating?
Oh, I feel guilty. Yes. I'm trying not to. I'm trying just to, because then it's like being told that you can't have something and then you want it. Boy that we liked when we were younger, he wasn't interested, made you like him even more. And, don't touch that, it's hot. So what do you got to do? You got to touch it. I think the same sort of thing applies to, that food's off limit because it's bad. Mm-hmm. And therefore you want it more. And so, you can't eat, cookies, biscuits because they're bad. And then you have one, then you feel guilty, and then you just keep going because you think, fuck it, I've already done that. Yeah. So, off I go. May as well be slaughtered for, what is it? What's that saying? Slaughtered for one lamb as two or something. I don't know.
I haven't heard
Yeah, it's some funny saying that I heard once. And then, it just perpetuates itself. But taking that, I mean, it's a learned thing because it's something that we've learned. It's certainly something that, how I was raised is with the good and the bad, the naughty and the nice type thing, you know, have a piece of cake. Oh, it's a bit naughty. But rather than I'll just have a small piece and I'm really going to enjoy it and I'm not going to feel bad about it, that's trying to get more into that mentality. Not saying eat cake every day and don't.
No.
But I'm just if it's somebody's birthday or you've got somebody over for afternoon tea or whatever, it's okay to indulge. I don't know what the best word would be, but accept it as not a bad thing and just move on rather than thinking
interesting.
I'll eat the whole cake now.
Yeah, I must have that in me because I don't have that. It's exactly as you just described. If it's someone's birthday or any reason to have cake, then I don't have any. I'm like, yeah, crack on. I really don't have any guilt. But the guilt is when I can't because I don't have this at the moment, particularly this kind of self-control about not eating the whole flipping thing because I'm so addicted to like that sugary thing at the moment. I could feel it vibrating through my body. I swear to you, the other day, I was like, all morning, I was like, right, don't eat anything crappy, just eat really clean, which I did. And by about 2:00, I was ready to stab someone. I was like, I've got to have something. It
like
was
something sugary
through me. Yeah.
Oh, really?
And
yeah.
so in the end, I did just go and get something, and this is just not shifting. Which in theory then should have then solved the situation, but of course once you've had one bit, then you've sort of kick-started it.
Right.
Like, oh, now I've got to have more, and I'm just going to have to go cold turkey, I think, trying to break it for a little bit. But yeah, I have that ability to not feel guilty about the food. It's the amount of
you
it.
You scare me, Sarah.
If anyone has a chocolate bar.
See, I feel guilty about everything. If I buy myself something, I feel guilty. Or, yeah. And I don't know if that stems from, like, a childhood thing. I think, I don't know. I think maybe it does. I used to feel guilty that Dad left us. I mean, I was just, 6 or 7. Maybe it stemmed from that.
Maybe.
But, and then...
like a blame culture sort of thing.
Like a blame thing. And then when he came back into my life when I was about 15 and just turned it upside down... then I would feel guilty if I, didn't see him when he wanted to see me.
Yeah, that must be hard.
Or if I don't know, if I, told him what I think, because he would just sort of float in and out of mine and my sister's life. And I think that sort of sent its tentacles all through everything in my life.
Yeah.
Looking, back now, I mean, I always have had the mindset, like, be responsible for your actions, but I think, and so I've always thought that never to blame anybody else for the fact that I've put on weight or whatever. But I think that my whole dad thing really did a lot in my life that I hadn't realized. And in saying that, that was part of my letting go thing that I did with burning the piece of paper. But I don't know. I think too, from my mum, I learnt to be guilty as well. I think not intentionally, she wouldn't have done that, but certainly surrounding food. I think definitely with that. But I think I've just gone through life feeling guilty about everything. Really guilty about moving away. Moving away
yourself
from
something. You feel guilty
about it. Yeah. Because Mum would, and I'm not blaming my mum for this, but I remember once Mum saying to me when I was going to buy something, "Oh, you can't afford that." She'd have no idea, This is years ago. She'd have no idea, but there was a very good friend that was sitting there at the time, Auntie Joyce. I always called her, and she said to Mum, "Don't ever say that to her, because when you say that to someone, it keeps them in that position. That's a terrible thing to say." And so I don't know. Mum used to buy stuff and hide it from John, from our father. So I see that I don't do that with my husband because he's fine. And we've been fixing the house up, and I've been buying things here and there. But yeah, I felt just that whole sense of guilt. But yeah, like I said, I felt guilty for every time I left home and came back to, whether it was, initially it was Canada where I lived and then the US. Oh, I'd feel guilty at leaving my parents behind. And then, and then as they got older, my sister had to deal with aging parents. And I went home when it was absolutely necessary, moving them and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
But Debbie had to deal with a lot, with everything, really. And so then I felt guilty about that. I think, God, when I sat down, when we decided that we were going to, talk about guilt today, and I sat down and thought, I'm like, geez, I felt like guilty for breathing almost, not that to that extreme, but just carrying so much of it around with me.
Like, for me, some things are a bit different. So I've often thought about this, actually, because I've been divorced for a really long time. I've often thought to myself, one of the benefits of this situation is I can do exactly what I want when I want. So things like making decisions about, the house, making decisions about buying something, a holiday. So I've had very little guilt around any of those things because I've literally had myself to please, and that, that's been it. But what I do have is mum guilt. I have a lot of mum guilt, which I think is quite
common
a
thing, do you
normal
think?
thing.
Yeah,
I think so. And particularly working, if for me, working mum, working parent is then that juggle of time and where you can be and where you can't be. I've layered that up with then him having to be in a situation where he's got divorced parents, so 2 homes, 2 houses that he needs to move his time between. So there's a lot of guilt that surrounds all of that, because if I then decided to do something for myself with my friends or something, I'd feel terrible about it if he was then meant he had to go and stay with family or his dad or something. I still went, don't get me wrong, obviously wasn't that guilty, was I? I went anyway. But I did.
You have to have a life, right? Can't just be a mum. Yeah.
And I've done some really lovely things and enjoyed myself. But yeah, I think parental guilt, mum guilt is strong. So I've definitely had that for the last, nearly, can you believe, 18 years? Can't quite believe it. But yeah, the other sort of guilt is the things, making choices like you just described, of buying things or decisions around the home. I've been very lucky because it's the benefit of being on your own. It's not all it's cracked up to be sometimes, but that's a good thing, to make those decisions. But yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I feel guilty about. Not really, actually.
Oh, good for you.
Well, maybe you've got it all.
Yeah, right. So, now I'm doing this episode and learning about guilt and how it can weigh and bog you down, which I've always known, but still, I would. It's to recognize it. And is it something that I can fix? Like, is it my guilt for starters, or am I taking on somebody else's? Because that also happens. Is it warranted? It's not like, I'm having an affair with somebody else, married, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm not, like, it's not even warranted. None of it is warranted. So I have to recognize it. Oh, I'm having a deja vu.
Are you? Oh.
Yes.
Do you think it's got a foundation in anxiety? And I know you've talked about anxiety before, because it's almost like a worry that you've done something wrong. Is something going to go wrong? That's the sort of guilt thing, particularly bringing something into the home that you've bought. Loads of people do this. I know, that, buy a new pair of shoes and then hide them at the back of the cupboard and say you've had them for ages and all that sort of thing. Is it a fear that it's going to cause an argument? Is it a fear that, it's that you're going to then be struggling for money for the rest of the month?
Perhaps,
is it really more about that?
Yeah. Which we're not. So, and it's not like I'm making, major purchases and being like my mother-in-law who had to buy a shed to put all the shit she was buying from the TV in, that it wasn't even nice stuff. This is, it could be anything. It could be a coat, or, because granted I do have quite a few coats, but I don't know, just the whole spending money. And I think that's because I learnt that if you spend money, that's not a good thing. Yeah. We save money too. So I don't know. But I'm really going to either just not spend money. I mean, we all have to spend money on stuff, right? We all have to spend money on something. I mean, like bills. They're always paid. So that's the thing. It's not like I should feel guilty because the bills are always paid.
The thing is, I've been through periods of time, particularly in lockdown, when everyone had to be really super careful about, outgoings and spending and all that sort of stuff. I cut everything out that was not a necessity. And then that kind of just carried on without me realising it for quite some time. And then I realised I was actually bloody miserable because I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't buying anything.
Right.
You just think there's something to be said of buying something fresh and new, isn't there? It makes you feel a bit, I don't mean every day, but it makes you feel a bit lifted. It brings something to your day and to your life, doesn't it? So I think there's a balance between that.
But things that you think, and purging has taught me this, like, only get what you absolutely love.
Yes.
Like, not you see something, and I know everybody's guilty of this. They see something on, Instagram or Facebook or whatever and think, she's using it. That looks great. Like lipstick, for example. that looks great. Oh yeah, I'll need that. But she's like light skinned, blonde hair, and then I think, oh yeah, and so I buy it, and I'm just using this as an example. Put it on, and I'm like olive skin, dark hair, and I'm thinking, God, it looks like I've got no lips. It doesn't work. But I think there's so much, we're inundated with so many visions and so many things online of like must take. This is good for your health, blah, blah, blah. And then we all fall into that marketing trap, buy stuff and then think, oh, I mean, every now and then you buy stuff and you think this is awesome. But I think, a lot of time we buy things that we really don't need.
It's also like clothes, isn't it? So you see them on the screen, on the models, and you think, oh, they look fabulous. And then they turn up and you put them on and you look like a sausage in a skin. You're like,
because they're like 5'11" and, a size 6. Right, exactly.
That wasn't how I envisaged this was going to work out.
And purging has really taught me a lot in the fact that, because I am trying to simplify things. And, I said to my husband yesterday, well, because we've been changing the house around and just, small things and getting it to how, so I've got rid of all the spontaneous, I'll grab that, I'll grab this, and just having things that I absolutely love that just work with the look of the house. They make me feel, like serene. Like when you walk into our place, it's very monochromatic. But for me, I don't care because it makes me feel calm and serene. So if I do buy something, it has to be something that I absolutely love. And there's the need thing. The need and the want aren't usually the same. But, and to not feel guilty about it, because I think that guilt, it shackles us. Well, for me it does. I know for me it's really sort of held me back without even realizing it, how much it does, until I started working on all the shit that I feel guilty for no reason.
The nub of that means that there's always been a reason that something has happened that you then are then feeling guilty about the consequence of. So, if you've eaten a food like you've just described, there's no need to feel guilty because there is no good food and bad food.
Right.
But the nub of it is because you're feeling like you want to move to a goal of losing weight or getting healthier. So if you feel that if you eat that food, it's going to destroy your goal. So that's where the guilt comes from, because you've been told it's bad. I'm trying to think of other things, in relationships, if people have had an affair, clearly that's going to hurt someone's feelings. But why have they done that to start with? Why have they had the affair? So there's kind of a root cause every time, isn't it? That's the interesting part. The guilt is just the result of something, I think, rather than actually paring it back. And with your dad, the root cause of that is the fact that he hurt your feelings badly. And so then if you unpeel all of that, that's you just as a little girl trying to process it, has then turned out as a result of guilt. But actually, if you peel it back to the cause of it, it's something completely different.
Right. And it was absolutely had nothing to do with me. I mean, in part, I guess it did, because he didn't want to be responsible for 2 children, but that was not my fault, you know. And to understand that, because I think over time, guilt becomes like someone that smokes, it becomes like a comfy cardigan that you put on. It's kind of like, for me, I think it's like my buffer, and it shows itself in excess weight, because it wasn't until I moved away too that I started putting on weight as well, because I felt such guilt for leaving my family, and that never went away. Even now I still feel some of it, but I learned to deal with it a bit better. But for the first 15 years, I guess, it was bad. Yeah, it was bad. Or even more than that, because, then, like I said, my sister had to then deal with, my parents. And then, she was by their bedside, saw them, when they died and all of that sort of stuff. And I was absent from that. But I think with that gone, too, that makes a big difference. I mean, I'm devastated by their loss, as you know. But I think that guilt's gone not gone, because it's still there, that she's still dealing with stuff, but not to the extent
not
either.
In the same way.
Yeah. And, doing this, I'm going to be doing this podcast. I'm certainly going to be mindful for it and try and, break the cycle, because I think it is a cycle. I think there's probably a lot of women, especially, that feel guilt. When you were talking about being a mum, and just a disclaimer here, Sarah is like an amazing mum.
Thank you.
Just the things that you say that you did. I mean, I thought my mum was a good mum. She never did half that stuff. But I think women carry a lot of guilt that they need to be, maybe a better wife or a better mum, as you said, and just, or better at work, and or that they feel guilty that they're working and they're, kids in daycare or whatever. And I think, women carry a lot of guilt around with them. And I think
I can certainly remember that feeling. So I went back to work when my son was 1 year old, and I went back to work 4 days a week. And those first few days of trying to, hand him over at the nursery and go off to it, it's just the worst feeling.
Oh,
and
I can't
even
imagine.
When I was then divorced, and he still saw his dad a couple of times a week, and trying to hand this, he was only tiny, he was 3, and he was clinging on to me and crying, and I'm trying to peel him off and go with daddy, knowing full well that he'd be fine. And
right.
Obviously I just felt it was really important that he did still do that. It would have been really easy to say, oh, let's just leave it for today, he can stay, stay home with me, but just kept that going. But that feeling inside, it just eats you up, because I just felt so guilty, because I thought the only reason he's having to do this is because me and his father had made the decision that we didn't want to be married anymore. So the consequence of Henry having to be peeled off me, is because of the fact that I've decided I don't want to be married to his dad anymore. Or we decided, between us, we don't want to be married. So that's, a huge amount of guilt, and probably that's carried all the way through. So some of the things that I over deliver on, it's compensation for the fact that that happened, which is ridiculous, particularly 15 years on. You just sort of think, come on, and so it manifests itself in lots of different ways, doesn't it?
It does. And plus, I think too, it comes as, I don't know, like being critical of ourselves, not forgiving ourselves for things as well. I don't know. Do you think? I feel guilty when I bite my bloody fingernails. Granted, I am trying to grow them, and I do grow them, and then I bite them, and then it eats away at me. And I think, like you said, it's like a catch-22. It's an anxiety thing. I bite them because I am anxious, and then I feel guilty, so it exacerbates itself. Not comparing getting divorced with biting my fingernails, but
as easy as. But then what do you... So that's a good thing then, a good question. So what do you actually feel guilty about when you're biting your nails? It's not the physical biting of your nail, is it? It's the result of letting yourself down. That's what I was saying earlier. It's the fact that you've let yourself down. You're disappointed with yourself. You're like, oh, I promised myself
that I wouldn't do it.
That.
And here
I am.
I
promised myself that I was going to grow my nails, or I promised myself that I was going to get healthy and lose weight. But here I am, shoving in my 10th chocolate chip cookie of the afternoon, and I don't give a shit, and it's going to go in anyway. And then you finish the packet, and then you screw the packet up and get rid of it, because you can't look at the packet because of the guilt is just there going, look what you've done. It's got nothing to do with that biscuit. The biscuit, I didn't.
That was the innocent party.
That was exactly. And then you sit there with that overwhelming wash of guilt that comes over you, just thinking.
And then you bite your nails.
What a crap human being I am, because I can't.
God, it's so bad
I haven't even got enough willpower
to not do that.
A packet of biscuit, or
right?
Not bite your nails or whatever.
Right.
And that's when you give yourself such a hard time, and the guilt that you put on yourself, no one else is putting that on the other.
No.
They're not gonna, I mean, they might sit there and go, how many wrappers have you got there? You go, well.
Or they'd say to you, you know what? Put it behind you and move on.
They might. That's the other thing, maybe. Maybe we're assuming what other people think.
I don't know.
We assume what other people are going to be thinking of us. maybe are you ashamed of your bitterness?
Would you sit there and do that in front of people?
No.
See, yeah. It's like the secret eating. And then feel guilty about that. But I think if you can let go of guilt, granted, you know, I think anybody that ate a whole packet of biscuits would probably feel some remorse. I don't know.
It's just so easy, though, isn't it, Lovoni? I mean, if only it was harder.
That's why I don't have them in the house, because of that.
The thing is, you can go and buy them. That's the really awkward thing.
Oh, right. I'm going to travel. I'm going to travel 30 minutes, Stilly, to go and do that. Or I could just whip up a batch. See.
Oh,
that's
right.
the thing, right?
Yeah, I just bought it out of a packet.
Right. No, but I'm saying, you know, I've got a shop, go out and get them, but I could just, I mean, you could whip them up too. But I think that, okay, yeah, let's try not to do that. But I think that the process of feeling guilty, I mean, don't you think it's it's toxic.
It is.
It holds you back from stuff.
It doesn't serve any purpose. Wow, does it serve a purpose? I mean,
it does if you've been horrible to somebody. I think that if you've had a fight with like a good friend and you've been, you know, a bitch to them or whatever, or to your husband or whatever, and you feel guilty about that, then address it, apologise, and then move on, and hopefully they'll do the same. You know, recognise it, apologise, move on. But from carrying stuff around, like whether it's eating or chewing your nails or maybe not working out, I mean, even if you recognise, well, I feel guilty when I don't work out, I don't know, therein lies the solution. Then work out, right?
Maybe we should use that emotion or that feeling of guilt as a lesson.
Right.
You know? So every time we feel that, that's a little twang of a reminder.
Like, why am I feeling this?
Use the lesson to do the other, to do the opposite of what you're feeling guilty about. So it's normally the exact opposite as well, isn't it? It's not like it's a sort of a slight tweak.
No.
It's normally the exact opposite of what you're feeling guilty about.
Yeah, so if you feel guilty for not working out, then work out, because that's doing something positive for yourself. If you're eating shit food and you feel guilty about it,
go and eat some healthy food.
Just don't eat the shit food, or don't consider it's like that, and just think, I can still have a little of this, a little of that, a little of this, and a lot of the good stuff. And just and then I think it's about balance, really.
Yeah.
But it's about recognizing it and recognizing what it does to you. And also knowing that you're not responsible for anybody else's guilt as well. Like I used to be with my father, because he used to feel remorse and guilt. Yeah, I mean, that's never going to serve you anything, is it? And it's never going to serves us absolutely nothing. And also, you know, like trying to win the approval of people, and I don't know. I sometimes feel guilty because I have like no filter, not much of a one anyway. And I try not to be rude, but like I think something and it often pops out my mouth and I don't realise it has until everybody's laughing, which is probably a good thing, because I probably said what everybody else is thinking. Yeah. And then afterwards I think, oh, you know, I need to like curb that. But I think that's just part of who I am. And often I'm told it's refreshing that, you know, and I won't be definitely wouldn't be unkind to anybody or mean. But I just don't have much of a filter, and I have felt guilty for that. And I've tried to change it to no avail, really. So I need to just accept that's how I am and move on. And, you know, the people in my life that love me, like my friends that you know, love me, like, they also love me for that. So
exactly, that is who you are.
I think people need to, you know, think of that too. Like, not beat themselves up for everything. Because that's really what guilt is, isn't it?
Yeah,
you know,
true.
Beating yourself up. Anyway. So, I don't know, guilt trip. It's bad. And let's try and work on...
I think we said it doesn't serve anything, but actually it does serve. That's what we just said.
Awareness.
We can use it. We can use it, as the lessons and the awareness. But once you've used that lesson, then leave it behind, because carrying it all the time is just carrying that. It's like that thing, isn't it, where they say, if you hold a glass of water for 5 minutes, it doesn't bother you at all. If you keep holding the glass for a day later, it's going to feel like an absolute ton of bricks.
Right.
So, you know, hold it, do what you need to do with it, then put it down and let it go. Because if you keep carrying it around, it will become heavier and heavier and heavier.
And ends up on your ass and your hips and your stomach and your arms and your boobs, and that's what it has for me. It's my little padding, my little, safety thing. So this is me just releasing it all and being aware of it, and certainly doing this, like I said before, doing the podcast and talking about guilt and writing everything down has made me realize how much I've actually been carrying around with me. So
what could we give as advice from our point of view then? We could say that
to be aware of it, I think.
The awareness of it and to use it rather than just sort of keep having it there, and then just put it down. So be aware of it, use it, and then put it down.
Right.
Put it down, put it away, get rid of it.
That's what, when it's unjustified. If you're, stealing money from someone or running around, behind your wife, your husband's back or whatever, your partner's back, I mean, that's your business. But if you're feeling guilty about it, But
that's still the same thing. It's because that awareness, then the middle thing would be to do something about it. Because to do something about it, be either stop doing it
or leave.
Make the decision that you don't, you don't want to
get off the pot.
So actually, it's still the same three-step process, isn't it?
Right.
So, and that goes back to the fact that we then said there's a nub, there's a reason why this guilt has come out. The guilt is just the end result of something.
Right.
So I think that's where the awareness and the lesson thing comes.
Okay, so what are the three things again? Because I'm going to have to...
So the three things were awareness, to be aware...
Be aware that you're feeling guilty.
That you're feeling of it.
Right.
To then take the lesson from it. So what's it telling you?
Right.
So what's the nub of the problem and what's the lesson? Then basically you can do something about it with that lesson.
Right.
And the third thing is to put it down. Put that glass of water down, put it down, let it go.
Right.
If you keep carrying it around, it's just going to get heavier and heavier and heavier.
So acknowledge it and deal with it as best you can. And, and then it'll keep coming up, I'm sure. But eventually, it'll like any you will learn to just put it aside.
Let it go.
And then think why. Like you said, for me, anxiety, and I never thought that, I always thought I was not an anxious person, but I think now I'm becoming more aware of the fact that I internalize a lot. On the surface, I may not seem like
the symptoms of what you're of all the things you're sort of then externally showing is, if you then dig down, it's from that, it's the anxiety of all these things.
So in saying all that, apparently I'm going to have more goals than you, because I'm like, the guilty
You're
one.
on it.
Right? I am. I've been on this guilt trip for 5 decades. Good grief. So what are your goals? And they don't have to be, around guilt, but what are your goals or goal for the coming week?
My goal, and I wrote this down, is to be a bit more specific about what it is that I'm going to do. Because I think for me at the moment, because I'm having to refocus and kickstart this, moving away, and the guilt of feeling of not eating well, is I need a very clear destination. So my goal is I'm going to lose 2 pounds before the next time. Now, shall we explain that we're going to be recording today?
Yes.
Because that might be a bit of a challenge.
Okay, Sarah, ready, set, you've got about 10 minutes. 2 pounds and gone.
So
nice big poo could probably sort that out. Sorry.
That's quite something. So we're going to be recording to you today because Lovoni is away again next week with work.
Still working on the Mexican cookbook.
Still working on the bloody Mexican book. Everyone's going to be so invested in this book.
I know, right?
We should be getting commission. Because I'll be, where on earth did you get this book from? Anyway, so £2 before our next recording, which isn't today.
Right.
It'll be actually 2 weeks' time. So the reason I've done that is £1 a week.
That's good. Totally
you
doable.
You shared something with me the other day that said, what the actual calorie deficit and the actual movement and everything that you need to do to lose £1 is actually quite a lot.
Right.
So I think a realistic amount is I want to lose £2 before the next time we get together.
Yes, definitely £1 a week sounds more doable than a kilo a week, which is 2.2 pounds, which, I mean, people can do if they go into a major calorie deficit, and the more you have to lose, the faster you lose it too. That's, another thing.
Yeah.
But my goal, is the whole guilt thing, but just, if I feel it, be aware of it, address it, let it go. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
But I'm going to just, continue on working out, because I'm now at the stage where I'm like it. I wanted to slap my husband early in the piece because he's we're demolishing our spare room bathroom, and we are. When I say that, he is. That's the royal we. But he'll do that and work like just a madman all day, and then still go and work out in the evening. And I think you probably burnt like 9,000 calories carrying the bathtub out, blah, blah, all that. But he said he loves it. He loves working out. And when he first said that to me, honestly, I wanted to slap him. But now I'm at the stage where if I don't do it, I was going to say I feel guilty about it, but I don't. If I don't do it, I just don't feel right. I like how it makes me feel. So,
well, I can understand that, because we went to the gym last Saturday before we then went out for the day. So we sort of got up at a decent time, went there early, spent an hour there, came home, showered, and then went out for the day.
All day were you thinking about, I've been to the gym, I feel really good?
It's amazing, because the two things, number one, how much you can fit in your day, because you're like, you feel like you've actually achieved something before your day's even really started. That was good. You do feel good. Your body feels like it's been moving more. You feel better within yourself. It definitely made a difference. I mean, the day after, we were creaking like you wouldn't believe. Like,
but that's a good feeling, though.
It is a good feeling. It is a good feeling, but very creaky. So I would say that so that's, as well as my losing my £2, I'm definitely obviously going to be doing that, because I'm enjoying going to the gym that I've joined.
Well, I'm back in a photo shoot all week, so mine is to maybe just get up a smidge earlier, so I can do, just to keep at my exercise, because by the time I get home, like I said, I'm too tired. Plus,
good for nothing.
Lawrence is in there pounding away, stinking up the workout room. So
don't. But
anyway, no. So let's chat about, because something when Sarah and I started this podcast, we wanted to also add some things in about. Well, we like to talk about what we're cooking. Well, I like to talk about that. So I'll just quickly tell you what. Do you want me to quickly tell you what I'm making?
Go on then, tell me.
So, orange poppy seed waffles, buttermilk waffles.
God.
Yeah, yum, eh? With because blood oranges are in season here right now. I mean, for those that haven't listened to previous podcasts, better go and listen to them. But I live in Indiana, in the Midwest in the US, and blood oranges are in season. So I'm going to do an orange poppy seed buttermilk waffle with an orange salad. So I've got blood oranges and regular oranges, and at the moment they all look the same. So it's like a surprise when you cut into one. So there's that, and a Mediterranean chickpea salad.
Oh, that does sound
I thought that's good, coming into spring. It's going to be spring this month.
Yeah.
Just, like a chopped salad thing that will keep for a couple of days. Nice. So I'm going to do that. And what was the other thing? It was a chicken dish. Oh, I know. It's chicken so you pan fry it, and then it's done in like a creamy jalapeno sauce, because I love jalapenos. Yeah.
Nice.
And then you can just serve it up with some rice and, some greens. So there are a few things that I am going to be making, and lots of Mexican food again. I bring some leftovers home. Yeah, it is really good, I have to say.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's all right. I made, my son had friends to stay at the weekend, and they were here for over 24 hours. But anyway, they were here for a full day. And I thought, my God, what am I going to feed these whacking great teenagers with for the whole 24 hours? But anyway, one of the meals I made them was a chili con carne, because it was easy and it spread around. But I really didn't fancy having beef mince I just thought, didn't want it. So I made myself a cauliflower chili. Oh my God,
you did?
It was so delicious.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I said in our last recording that I wanted to have cauliflower. I'm really into it at the moment. So I made a cauliflower chili. So that's something that I've been making. And it was really, really delicious.
And did the boys like it?
They didn't have that. They had
okay.
beef. Yeah, they would.
Okay.
Could you imagine? They were like,
right. I was thinking that was very brave of you.
No. What I did was make a big portion, and then I put it in the fridge, and I had it for lunches and things over the next.
It's usually better too the next day. Those type of things.
Really, really, really nice. So that's what I've been making.
Oh, good for you. But anyway, we were also going to talk about things that we're just into at the moment. And I thought of this when I was putting my shoes on this morning, because I have these shoes. They're called Kizik. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
No.
They're so comfortable. After my knee surgery, I got rid of all my shoes because after having both knees replaced, because you walked a certain way, and I didn't want to screw anything up, and I got shoes as as flat as possible, because a lot of joggers and things like that, they tilt you forward, and having bad knees, I could feel that. This is before my surgery. So I got rid of all my shoes. I know that sounds extreme, but that's what I did. And got minimalist shoes, and shoes that don't tilt me one way or the other. And these Kizik ones I got because even though they've got laces in them, so you do the laces up and that's it. You never have to do them up again unless they come undone. You just slip your foot into them. Oh, my God, they're so comfortable. They're really comfy.
What, like a deck shoe or something?
Here, let me take one off and show you.
This is going to help.
So they have different. They have different ones. They have leather ones and stuff. Can you see?
Oh, it's sort of like a train.
So it's a bit like a skateboard shoe in the fact that it's flat.
Oh, Lovoni, that's so funny. When you were describing it, I had you in like these old lady.
Oh, right. No, and see,
and then you pick them up and I'm like, oh no,
they're cool. Well, I have them in these are navy, because when I got dressed in the dark this morning and realised I actually had grabbed a navy turtleneck. That's another thing too. A clothing brand that I love. So these shoes are Kizik, and you just slip your foot into them. They're awesome for travel. Because in the States, you always have to take your shoes off before you get on a plane.
On the plane.
And then you have to go over and try and, do your laces up, whatever, blah, blah. But these, you just, slip your foot in and out. And so I have them now in 3 colours, navy, black, and like a beige sort of colour. And they are so comfortable. They're really comfy.
Oh, cool.
And then another thing I love is this, it's a brand called Elos, and they have sizes from, 6 up to, I think it's like 34 or something.
Right.
And they have these sweaters. They call them the Audrey Hepburn sweater. So it's a turtleneck, but it's not one that's like, and you just have to tug at it all the time. It's loose. I know we're coming out of turtleneck weather, but I really like it. And the sleeves, I got the sleeves rolled up, but the sleeves are sort of a little blouse and thing around the wrist. Yeah, so it's just a really nice, I think, mostly. I quite like their clothing. Yeah. What about you? Have you got some favourites?
I've bought this week as a treat. I haven't unwrapped it yet because it's only just arrived, but a cardigan from a business called Jumper 1234, and they have really beautiful sort of like investment piece cardigans, cashmere, and the one that I've bought is leopard print with a kind of a rainbow edging right around the neck and down the sort of the front with the button piece to it and the cuff.
Right.
So I'm quite excited to give that.
Is this Sarah leaving beige behind?
Sarah, why did I ever buy beige to start with?
I almost bought a cardigan the other day. Well, I looked at it. It could still be in my card, actually. Sorry to interrupt. And it was beige. But I thought...
Did you stop?
I was thinking of like Sarah in the beige, but I thought it would look really good with black. Sorry. Anyway, that sounds like a fun piece.
So that's really nice and completely different, not clothing. What else I've bought this week is I've bought to help with my cleaning out and purging within the kitchen, some bamboo dividers for my kitchen drawers. And so then I've put them all in, and I've got rid of all of the plastic containers that I just don't need, and have that bottom drawer that I'm now talking about has been a disaster zone for quite some time. It's now sort of just all sorted and beautiful, and I keep opening it like you just described, and just standing there looking
having
at
an
it
aha moment. It's like, oh, that looks so
those
good.
Are things I bought some bamboo drawer dividers for my kitchen.
Right.
And I also...
Did you get those on Amazon?
I did.
Yeah, I got mine on Amazon.
Yeah. And I also bought a Dymo Label maker. I'm doing that clicking thing with my fingers.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're the one where you turn it and click it.
Right. Oh, God, are you labelling everything?
I had a whale of a time. No, mainly I've labelled my flour so that I know which is my plain and which is my self-raising.
Right.
And all of that.
Right, that's good.
But I would label, if it stays still, I will label it.
Everything.
Because I'm just really enjoying myself.
And you feel so organised too. For these things that Sarah and I have talked about, I'll put the links into the podcast description. I don't know. I might even share them too on my Facebook and something like that, or in my stories as well. Yeah. Because you know, and like we don't get paid to do that, to share these
things that we like.
But it's just things that we like, and I have I've got like a long skinny sort of foot, but over time I've developed a bunion on my left foot, so it poses problems. These shoes are awesome for that. Here I go on about the shoes again. So, and a lot of people...
love affair with your shoes.
My love affair with my shoes. But a lot of people have told me that they also have a bunion, just on one foot. So anyway, I know that there's people out there that do, yeah. You don't have one? No guilt, no bunions?
No, I'm just...
Maybe the two are related. Yeah, you are. Oh, so next week, what are we talking about? We're doing cheap eats next week. I'm pretty excited about
having
this one.
Chatting about all sorts of things with choices about food and
how to eat
options.
Healthy on a budget. I want to share a couple of stories on that too, about just, misconceptions of eating healthy on a budget. So that's going to be in our next episode. Episode 11 we're up to now. Also, something, I think this is a fun thing. So I don't think I've mentioned this yet, but I'm actually going over to the UK in April.
You are.
And Sarah and I are going to do a cooking video together. So we'll share that with you too. That'll be fun. But thanks for listening, everybody. If you've tuned in to episode 10, Guilt Trip. So please...
I've had some good tips out of those. I
think so. Oh, and had to listen to me, spill myself. Oh, yeah, about guilt. You know what I mean?
I know.
Now I'm going to feel guilty about talking so much about my guilt. But anyway, join us next week for our cheap eats. Like I said, it's going to be eating well on a budget. Also, ways of exercising too that are free, or that inexpensive. Anyway, but until then, thanks for listening. And from Sarah and I, if you haven't subscribed yet, go and subscribe to the Waiting Room Podcast. Also follow us on Instagram and Facebook, which maybe just Instagram, because I'm not sure. I think I'm going to roll my Facebook and Waiting Room on Facebook, my Fresh Hunger, and the Waiting Room into one, because it's just messed everything up. But anyway, thanks for listening, and we will catch you again next week. Bye now.
Bye.